call the meeting to order. I'd like to call the meeting of the City of Laredo Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1, November 10th meeting to order. It's 2:35. And the first item on the agenda is call the meeting to order. Second item on the agenda is roll call. Can I ask us to go through roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Patricia Goldberg?
She's on her way.
Okay. I think she's... Is that you? I see a phone number, but she's muted. Is that her?
I think that's probably her. I hear her.
We'll get her attention a little later.
Okay.
I think she'll be...
Mr. Arturo Garcia?
Present.
Here. Mr. Jose Castillo?
Present.
Mr. Kirby Snideman?
Here.
Mr. Henry Sauvignon?
Here.
Mr. Jose Ceballos? He's here. And Ms. Carol Alexander? We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the minutes, approval of the minutes for the September 8th meeting. A copy of those minutes were sent to everyone earlier by email. And I hope everybody's had an opportunity to go through the minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, additions? Yes, Mr. Garcia.
Nadia, did you take into account the comment I told you to remove the portion after the adjourn section?
Yes, correct. I took a note of that.
Okay, so I'm good with that. There was only one change that I requested.
Very good. Anybody else? Sensing no other corrections or changes to the minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes as presented with the comment of Mr. Garcia's.
Now I'll make a motion.
For a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And none in opposition. Minutes are approved as presented with the one correction by Mr. Garcia. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, excuse me, I'm gonna have to pull it back up. Here it is. Okay, citizen comments is item 4, citizen comments. Citizens are required to fill out an outline witness card no later than 2:45 p.m. and can be found at the City of Laredo's website. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No more than 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of an issue. Speakers may not pass their minutes to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Have any citizens reported wanting to speak?
Not at this moment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and we have, as you ably note at our other meetings, they have another few minutes to sign up. Very
Up
good.
until 2:45.
Thank you.
Henry, I have a
Yes.
non-agenda comment. So, and this is all just hearsay at this point, but I understand that there may be some discussions about the outlets in terms of alternative uses of the outlets. I don't know if the city has had any conversation or if there's anybody, and whatever the order is on the board, if there's any discussion that we should start thinking about to be proactive in our role and discussing the livelihood of the outlet shops, if it's so that obviously they're in bankruptcy, right? So if there's anything that this board can do to get ahead to assist, or even just to be informed, it's just I don't think there can be back and forth, right, on this citizen comment, but just something for the board to think about.
Okay, and I think that some of that discussion can come up when we're discussing item 5 of the agenda. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and return to the agenda and immediately go on to item 5, a discussion with possible action regarding the workshop presented by Able City board member, comments regarding the information presented, and then any other matters incident there too. And I think starting with starting with the idea, a general, I'm sorry, I'm hearing some background noise, so you may want to put yourself on mute until you're ready to speak. I just like to open up with a few comments, and I know that some of you have already heard some of these comments before, so I appreciate your indulging me, but I think it's important to very briefly bring us up to the point we're at and how we got here. You know, it's taken a while to reach this point, and it's been a series of meetings, both the meetings that we've had on a monthly basis, as well as subcommittee meetings where we've taken tours of the downtown and things of that nature. And it's my plan to leave this particular meeting with specific instructions to Able City regarding revitalization or reinvestment plan to implement. You know, many of us that have been here listening to the various we've probably been listening to the various meetings that are going on in the city right now. In addition to the meetings that Jose Ceballos mentioned regarding the outlets, there are just general talks within the city with the Chamber of Commerce, those committees in the city related to COVID, border revitalization organizations that have been talking about the effects of the pandemic, the economic slowdown, the border closures on the business community as a whole. And then for us, with our focus being the tourists, we're talking about the downtown area. Now, when Able City came on board earlier this year, we worked with them to do several things. One is to review the existing economic plans as they exist, especially those that address the downtown area. Also, we met with them several times and in subcommittees did walkabouts in the downtown area, never at a quorum level, but 2 or 3 members, where we walked around to visit the downtown area to look for areas of specific interest to the group. We put our thoughts together on paper and we submitted these thoughts to Able City, in which we targeted certain corridors, certain streets that we would like to focus on as a start. We even narrowed down what we talked about or what we consider to be development. And we talked about trees, we talked about lights, we talked about walkways, whether it was widening a walkway or creating walkability, etc. All of this moved forward through a series of memos and workshops that were coordinated and worked on by Able City, where we got together and we talked and we provided them with input. After these workshops, there were still more walks and more tours that 2 of us or 3 of us are in committees, subcommittees were able to do. Several workshops, and this in addition to the workshops by Able City. So where has this landed us? We're at the following point. At the last 2 meetings, we talked about honing in or zoning in on an L. And the zone that's the L includes Zaragoza Street and San Agustin Street, with a start at the outlet shops. And again, I know there's conversation to be had there, with a start at the outlet shops, and it ended at the Center for the Arts. And the idea is that this L would be a walkable L. We were going to create walkways, whether it meant widening a sidewalk, evening a sidewalk, redoing a sidewalk, putting in trees and putting in lights. And those were the 3 specific things we talked about in general, in specific, that would help us target those areas. This would be the focus. Again, connecting shops to the outlets via the plaza, via the entrance to the city, because as you know, the pedestrian outlet, the pedestrian bridge, when people exit the bridge, they come in through that area there outside Zaragoza, etc. In meetings with Sue Darcy, this was another subcommittee meeting that was held. We also concluded that it was not necessary to use all the funds that are available. A portion of these funds could be used, and we should leave a part of those funds there. How much money are we talking about at this time? We're talking about June 30th. It's of June 30th, approximately $865,000. Now, Able City has has these thoughts that we put in mind. We've already explained this to them. They've been working to price things out because that's been our goal, to be able to get a price on this. I know that we've also talked about a few secondary items that are important to keep in mind, and this has also been mentioned to Able City, such as signage or gateways at the corner of Santa Ursula and Iturbide, at the corner of Santa Ursula and Zaragoza, that point people in the direction of the zone we're developing. Murals that would help some of the buildings that are in need of attention that are in the zone we're talking about. And then the need to create a small, it has to be a start, nothing significant, but a small start to a facade type program that would enable private sector investment in their buildings, or encourage private sector investment in their buildings in these zones that we're talking about. So what I'd like to do at this point, and I know there are more second and third area thoughts about this, but we have to start at somewhere, and that's where we're starting. At this point, I'd like to turn the floor over to individual members of the board, because we've been listening to the presentations made by Able City. As you can see in the chart in front of you, they're putting price to what we're talking about, so we get a feel for how much this is going to cost. But we need to finalize your input on this so that we leave Able City with a clear direction of where to move next. And I'm going to just turn over the floor to the board so that I can hear your comments and either agree and emphasize that this is where we want to move into. I know a couple of you have expressed ideas that are not necessarily exactly in this vein of line of thinking, and I'd like you to speak up, of course. And so there we are. Can I go ahead and begin with, I'm just gonna ask Jose Ceballos to begin and talk about some of his thoughts on what we've just presented, what I've said, and what we've been talking about, and also commenting on what Able City has presented to us. Not this time necessarily, because we're just looking at it, but we have had some of these numbers in draft before, and hear your comments.
Yeah, thank you. So last time we asked that we get this information ahead of time. Here we are again, we're getting the information last minute. So I'm just looking at the breakdown for the first time, right? But I think, and what I had done, and I hope the rest of the board will go through this exercise, I'm sure you have, is I kind of broke down the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, the things that are kind of baseline. And they're all components that we've discussed and that.
Jose, could I interrupt just to say, whoever's screen is sharing, can they please either stop sharing or to zoom in? Because it's either way, it's so small, it's hard to see. But maybe we don't need that right now. I don't know if we do, but it'd be nice to see the.
Jose, because Jose's too small, is what you're saying. Okay, I'll stop sharing.
It may be good if you would circulate that over email. That might, so we could pop it up on our second screen if you have one. Anyway, so what I was.
Henry, you have it in your email. I sent it about half an hour ago.
So the low-hanging fruit that I've considered, and I would like to make a motion at some point, unless the board feels differently that we're not ready to, and I'll agree to the consensus. But trees, the string or hang lights, sidewalk widening, repairs to light poles. And of course, the lighting is going to take probably some infrastructure work. We don't have meters everywhere to do this. And then of course, gateway signs, which I think we've kind of all agreed on where those belong. And then wayfinding. I know others have ideas with murals. And as much as I think we should probably do a mural project, I think the low-hanging fruit are those components. Again, trees, I have other landscaping, which could be planters and other things, lights, string lights and some pole lights, sidewalk widening again, and gateway signs. When I looked at beyond what Able City shared, when we've walked and looked at sidewalk widening, there's actually not a lot of blocks that we've got to tackle that, because there are some blocks that they already have a good baseline of walkability. So for me, it's at this point, it's starting with a project that looks at those components and focusing on the L as has been discussed. Even if the outlet talk is taking us in a different direction, it's still going to be some sort of significant venue that would be important to downtown. It couldn't be anything else but that because of the size of it. So that I wouldn't change that. I think for me, starting with something sizable, we're going to have design fees. We're going to have Able City project management fees. Leaving some money aside for that will be important. What do we do with the H, right, or the prongs, which are Iturbide and Zaragoza? I feel strongly that there needs to be an arrival at the beginning of Iturbide, and that could be some sort of, and I'll leave that to Able City, could be a gate, some sort of gateway. Could be lit, it could be a sign, it could be a combination. I also think the museum strip on Zaragoza is an important strip for what's going to happen there with the county. But so the H is important. There isn't real walkability from the 800 block, which is the first block as you turn from Santa Ursula to Iturbide. From there to the 1000 block, the walkability is kind of obstructed. So I think we want to work that. We may want to do that as a phase 2, but identify it now. Perhaps not so much on Zaragoza, but I think we should also create some walkability from the museum back to the hotel and to the plaza. And again, that could probably be a phase 2 of this. Whether we could do it with this same initial pot or not, I think that's to be determined. But that's, Henry, that's for in-group, that's what I'm leaning to. Handing low-hanging fruit. Lights are not very expensive. Even sidewalk widening may be something we can do, because we don't have a lot of blocks in the area. And I don't know if all of you have the side maps in front of you, but it's the 1300 block of Zaragoza that needs a lot of work. We've talked in the past about at least having walkability on one side of that street. The next street, which is the 1200 block, I'm sorry, the 1200 block, that's already a walkway. So the full street is walkable. Then you get to the Plaza block. Then you get to the Tatangelo. The Tatangelo, I agree that both blocks in the Tatangelo need to be walkable. And there's a lot, there's a lot of activity there. It seems to be a venue, a site that's developing as a venue in itself, right? And not that it hasn't been before, but we hope that it comes back to its full fruition. And then from there, the only other block, so 2 blocks on Tatangelo, 1 block on Zaragoza for sidewalk widening. And then we look at the H side on the prongs on Iturbide, the 800 and 900 block, and then the 800 and 900 block of Zaragoza. So that's where the heavier cost is. That's kind of my input in summary of all things. The underground work, I wish we could afford. We probably won't be able to afford it with what we have.
Could you send us your notes, Jose?
Sure.
Okay. That you're muted.
Me?
No.
No, sorry. Yes, I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you. So I'd like to go. Arturo, how about yourself? Can we hear from you?
I like Joe's ideas. If we could just break it up just for purposes of, I'll have to abstain if we have any discussion on Iturbide Street. We could just break it up into any discussion, or if we do motions to break it up into segments like we had talked about, like the Zaragoza, the San Agustin, Iturbide, so we can kind of prioritize them like that. In fact, if that could be prepared for, I don't know if we're ready to take action at this meeting, but I think this will be sufficient guidance to our consultant to kind of develop a 1, 2, 3, 4 legs or whatever the case may be with a little bit more detail. And then maybe we can get this information like a few days ahead to kind of move through and kind of look at because it is kind of like last minute to get the numbers again. But it's
So
okay. But it's okay. It looks good.
I'm gonna maybe take a little, I'm gonna take a couple steps back to Jose's comments if I can. Do you mind if I comment, Henry?
Actually, to be honest with you, Mario, it just because I want to get the full board comments. I'd like you to respond as the whole to all of the board's comments and not individually to each one's comments, so that we can go all around the board.
I'll write down my questions. Sure.
So,
Okay.
Henry, you could also ask everybody to send us their notes on what their thoughts are.
Well, and
Right.
just so we are taking notes. Leslie's
Yeah.
taking notes. It's
But we
just,
don't want to miss it.
if you want to have more, or you have some insights you haven't been able to share, send them over. But we're taking notes, and we're going to refer to the recording.
It never hurts to send notes as well. That's correct. So now, in no particular, yes, Arturo, you finished. I'm sorry.
One last thing, and I'll shut up, but that way everybody can have their.
No,
their
go
time.
ahead.
The board had motioned also for installing a mural, so I would like to also have that. You know, I think we had mentioned 20 or 25,000. They'd have to look at the minutes to make sure on what that motion was, but I would want that incorporated as far as from my side of it.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so now, and I'm not doing this in any particular order, so please don't think I'm playing favorites here or anything like that. But Carol, Alexander, I'd like to turn it over to you now.
Well, I'm listening to everyone's ideas, and Jose had a long list, and I'm not really sure I could keep up with what, and I really wasn't prepared to answer. So the question is, what do we think individually is an important?
No, because I'm sorry, it is that's not the question. You raise a very good point. No, we've discussed the zone that we've been discussing like we did in the subcommittee meeting when we had lunch. So we're focusing on that zone, and what we're doing is we're commenting on what we're going to be doing in that zone, in that area. Jose did say, if there's additional money later, I'd like to see us go out a little bit in this direction or that direction. But his immediate comments and my request to the board is to comment immediately on what we've been talking about so far on the L part of the zone.
Okay,
Do you want us to put up the slide, Henry?
No, I'm familiar, but it looked like, we're not talking about that square that was around Iturbide. We're talking about the L down Zaragoza and then San Agustin, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then so the comments are supposed to be how we feel about.
Well, in other words, we've seen numbers as presented at the last meeting by Able City. They've updated those numbers, but we've seen a couple of versions and plans that Able City has presented at prior meetings. We've commented on them individually to them. And now what I'm trying to do is not save comments for the next meeting, but actually comment on what we know now and what we have now in terms of the program, the area we're targeting. You know, we've narrowed it down to a very specific area. And now it's that term that sometimes people use, we need to put up or shut up, so to speak. Let's comment and focus on that area there and see, are we going right? And so that we can give Able City some specific instructions on what to do in moving forward. And I can come back to you, Carol, if you're not prepared, if you want to gather your thoughts, a little bit more.
No, it's all right, because I mean, I keep singing the same song, right?
Okay, so please, go ahead.
And I can't comment, I think Jose had some great ideas, but I really couldn't, I was not prepared I really wasn't sure what the topic was. And so I looked at the plan again. I looked at our last meeting, and of course, what I see is what's the critical component in that L that you talked about is what I'd love to see, what I think would make a huge difference is even though I know it takes a chunk of money, is the sidewalk, the walkability from La Posada to the outlet mall structure, and definitely some signage, some wayfaring there, because that Salinas Street is not well, it's not well marked, and especially if you're in a car, and you have to go either to Mexico or you get stuck in a parking lot. I think that's critical. The wayfaring, the signage there. Our meeting with Laredo College, I thought I really would like to see, and I drove down that south part of Laredo College, that entrance, with the Circle Hotel, and if we could, someday incorporate that area as a walkable area for students and faculty to go from Laredo College out the south exit or entrance and connect to Zaragoza. It connects to, I guess, to Water Street, right down to the river park and that kind of stuff. And so there's creating more of consumers, right? All those people that are at the college could now, connect more heartily to the downtown area in that way. And I don't think that's been developed, and I realize that that's way far down the line, but it really seems like that would put, instead of just the bridge, right, but also all those people that are down at Laredo College doing what they do there, creates a consumers, a market. I think that we should concentrate and get something done initially, something that we can afford, that's not going to be like digging the utilities under lines. It's going to take a chunk of money, but something like lighting down that we've talked about with the consultant, that's a doable thing. But I did do some digging over this week, and I found an example in Houston. I think it's called TERS number 3, and they really they connect to the stakeholders, right, with a theirs is called the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, and the Downtown Redevelopment Authority has their own board, and they work under the TERS, so that they're basically working together, so that the TERS ultimately, of course, has the decision making power to decide where the monies go. But leaving all those meetings that you talked about, Henry, all those meetings that I wish I knew anything about what was going on downtown, and that's that I'm connected with this board, but our stakeholders just don't have an avenue, a way to, without really working hard to try and get themselves connected to the decision making downtown. The stakeholders are just they're just not there, and maybe it's because they don't want to be, or maybe it's because they're like me. I can't find how to connect to those meetings and those decisions, and why our bridge. I mean, I realize pandemic and all that, but who's going to decide when our bridge is open, and where are the merchants and the property owners and those people, not just the municipality, right? But where's the connection with the people that actually earn their living downtown? And I really would like to see that. I hope, if anything else comes out of this board, lighting, sidewalks, all of that. And Kirby, we had talked about, well, you actually enlightened me to the idea that a TERS could actually also be economically offer incentive packages to redevelop the area, not just with lights, but with monies that could go to improve the properties, connected to the people that own the buildings. And I think we really would. I think it's really an opportunity here to get that going and connect with some stakeholders. And if we do that with a downtown redevelopment authority group, or something, a district, something that allows people to sit at home and watch what's going on or connect somehow to the decision making and the ideas. There's a lot of creative people out there, and I think people just don't know how to connect to this opportunity. And so I hope to see that, and all of the decision, all of the ideas about what's already on the table, I'm in agreement with, except, you know, I really do like the idea of fixing up the San Agustin, I mean the Aldo Tangelo Parkway, you know, because there's that dangerous drop off, and I hope we can do something like that, but I hope we don't spend the money on just resurfacing the street. I think there's so much else to do besides that.
Very good. Yes, I appreciate the comments, and Carol, I agree with you. I know that, you know, we need to, there's so much more to do than just that small part. And the truth of the matter is, you know, we're faced with the fact that $865,000 will get us so far. But as long as we keep on being the messengers, I think it's part of our role. We all have connections to downtown people, and we need to be that liaison in that group that helps also bring them into contact with what we're talking about here, so as to help them bring them on board.
Well, I hope we can have a committee, and really, I think it's our whole board will be irresponsible if we don't develop that component for sustainability, and nobody else is doing it, and we have the opportunity to do that, and we could create that, and if we don't create that and we spend all the money and there's no component in place to sustain the improvements, we're going to be back where we started. And I think it's a critical component to maintaining whatever we build.
And you're correct. You're correct. I'd like to ask Jose Castillo for any thoughts and comments, Jose.
I agree with everything that has been said. I think we do need the sidewalk improvements on Zaragoza Street, connecting San Agustin Plaza and the outlets, and also the lighting on different streets, whether it's Iturbide or San Agustin, or the improvements on the Aldo Tangelo Parkway, and of course the signage that will direct people to the different areas of downtown. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the input. I believe Patty Goldberg, you're on the line, are you not?
Yes, I'm here.
I'd like to turn the floor over to you to hear your thoughts and comments.
Okay, my comments are very limited. I'm in agreement with what we've discussed all along, which is doing the L from the Center of the Arts, and because of the limited amount of funds, the only thing I would like to see, which is maybe how it's going to be approached, is how, like, you know, the lighting and all of that. But when we're starting to talk still about walkability, that begins to scare me price-wise. And I would also like to see the Tangelo Parkway as a focus. As far as walkability, even if it's even doable with our budget. So the only thing I'd like to see, and I know Able City broke it out, the budget by zone. Maybe we can break it out now. If everybody's in agreement with the L, break it out by block, and then basically like we did before, kind of within the block, what do we want to do? So that we can even keep narrowing what it is we can do with what amount we're willing to spend this year, leaving some money for next year. That's all my comments.
Very good. I appreciate your comments. Thank you. And then I didn't leave you. I left you the last on purpose, Kirby, because I know we've talked about a couple of ideas, and you've had a couple of separate ideas that I think now would be the time to incorporate them and talk to us about what you're thinking. I know you've focused on a couple of areas. We've had a couple of conversations related to this, but I'd like to hear from you at this point.
Henry, are you sure you haven't gone from favorite to least favorite? Because Jose started and I'm last, so I don't know.
No, I went the opposite way, Kirby. You're my favorite.
All right,
Jose, that
well,
means you're my least favorite.
I agree with everything that was brought up are things that could improve our downtown. So I don't disagree with any of that. Those are all things that need to get done, could get done, will get done at some point. The input that I've given as we've started really looking at these projects has been focused, however, on what improvements can we do that will have the biggest impact on property values, because that is the mission of the TERS. The mission of the TERS is not to fix all of downtown's problems, certainly not just the aesthetic ones. It really is, it's a reinvestment zone meant to encourage private reinvestment with public incentive. Typically that's done on with public right-of-way, with public land, but there's also public-private partnerships that can be done. With anything that we do, and Patty made a great comment. She really made I think the most important comment, and that is to the effect of what she was saying, and that is the wider area we try to impact, the smaller impact I think we're going to have. In other words, if we spread ourselves out, spend the limited dollars we have over a wide area, we're making a smaller impact. Maybe an impact that somebody wouldn't maybe even notice because there's just a little bit we're changing on every block. However, if we zeroed in on one block, we would have a massive impact on that one block. Now I know we want to look at different areas. We want to do as big an area as we can. My thought would be that we look at a block or two on both Zaragoza and Iturbide, and that's where we focus. I think whatever we do, we try to focus on one or two things and really do that well. For example, if all we decided to do was, right now, based on our limited funds, let's just do some lighting downtown, but let's do it very well. Let's do it nice, something that people are going to notice and say, wow, have you seen that? Have you seen what's happened downtown? Have you seen what's happening on Zaragoza? Have you seen what's happening on High Street? That it gets the attention of people who are looking to locate a business, people who are looking to buy a property, and that it can possibly bring in some new investment into the area. But I agree, those things in the order, it sounds like I'm hearing it: lighting, trees, and sidewalks, those top three. But again, the challenge with sidewalks is now it starts to get very expensive very quick, especially if you spread that out over multiple blocks. So my input as a TERS member would be, as a board, we've zeroed in on those top three. I'd say focus on 1, 2, or if you're going to do 3, but focus in on 1 or 2 blocks on Iturbide, focus on 1 or 2 blocks on Zaragoza, and make the biggest impact we can with the money.
Very good. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the board to respond or comment on what may have been said by other board members.
I have a question. Oh, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'm wondering, how is it that our city has gotten away with, I have no idea. I have no expertise or knowledge of this, but how is it that there is no ADA compliance with our sidewalks in downtown Laredo?
Well, Carol, I'll answer that. It's pretty simple. The ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, is a federal act that requires entities that serve the public to make reasonable accommodations. So it in no way required everybody to change everything. It just said that they have to make reasonable accommodations. And And certainly for the city to, fix everything, we're talking about billions of dollars in the city. And that would be unreasonable. So we make them where we can. We have a policy and a program with the city, but to go back and retrofit and fix everything in the city is just, it's cost prohibitive. It's just something we can't do. And so those federal requirements, when anybody has those requirements. If you're going to open a business for the public, you actually are under that as well, but there's a reasonable accommodation clause, typically meaning if your business is small enough, because you can't afford to, you're not required to, but you start to hit certain thresholds of size and then you're required to. And certainly if the city builds anything new, they have to build it to ADA. But when you're looking at what's in the past, there's really, we would cost the city, I would guess, probably over $1.5 billion to fix all of our sidewalks in the city.
Well, and not even talking about all of the sidewalks, but just like Zaragoza.
Well, then it becomes, you've seen how that can become kind of territorial with, district and where monies are spent.
Yeah.
Downtown, if you look at it, downtown, it has a disproportionate impact on the city in terms of what it can do for the city, and certainly in the property values it brings in. However, it's not seen that way. It's seen as, oh, that's one district and we can't spend all our money, we're gonna spread it out. So we spend a lot of money on other districts that don't bring in as much property value. But unfortunately, that's the way politics are here, where we don't have at-large members, we have district members. They're all district members, and it's seen as we've got to break it up, the investment amongst these districts. It's the nature of it.
I hope that provided some, thank you. Carol, I hope that provided some background. Again, I agree with Kirby. I mean, I wish we could be addressing this as well, but it is a city, it isn't something that we can do with the TERS money we have now, and we're not going to get supplemented by additional money on this. Somebody else said they had a question. Who else?
I was actually ready to make a motion if the board is comfortable at this point, or they want to continue to discuss. That's fine.
So I just add one comment, unless Able City, unless there's a comment that is going to add to the conversation or correct something we've said, or if we've been saying something incorrectly about what you've all been focusing on, I'd like to go back to what Jose is saying and begin to give very specific instructions. Able City?
I don't know if it's going to add, but maybe it's going to help craft the motion or just add clarity for us. There was note in several notes about breaking our cost projections up by block further, which is fine. It'll take a little bit of work. We can certainly do that. I would say that we would need clear direction on that. And then two, and I guess this is a question for Jose. You mentioned several low-hanging fruits, Jose, and you covered most of what our presentation had, which is lighting and landscaping and everything that we've now narrowed down, right? I think the only thing you and another couple of board members left out of the low-hanging fruit is surface modifications to streets. But if you can just add priorities to those low-hanging fruits, that would be, and we can get into more priority, but I think at some point we're gonna need to focus in on what the priorities are, and we can do that on a block per block. We can do that on a segment of what we're already broken out now.
Okay.
By prioritization is important.
Got it. And I think that as Jose makes the motion and we clarify the motion, that we need to be more clear about it, we will be. I'm sorry, who was going to say something? Someone was going to say something?
Can I say something very quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
Very, very quickly. I guess kind of going back to regulatory bodies here. I don't think this affects the motion, but to talk about Ms. Alexandra's question about ADA compliance, any kind of sidewalk or road that we touch or the engineers eventually will touch will have to comply with those standards. However, maybe Mr. Steinman, you can comment on what we want to also make sure we're doing is we're complying. I think a lot of this area is in the San Agustin Historic District. So I'm not sure how this affects working with the City of Laredo and the Landmark Board when it comes to public improvements such as murals, signage, even possibly lighting, how that has to be dealt with. But obviously, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with the local agencies as well. That's all I have.
Very good.
Just to clarify, not everything we touch has to come to ADA compliance. If we were spending certain federal dollars, maybe, but city has discretion on how we, and again, it's reasonable, making reasonable accommodation. There may be some places where we can improve the situation, but we don't have enough money to fix it, and that would be acceptable. Obviously, if we're going to do sidewalk improvements, we want to improve the accessibility, but we may not be able to bring them to a certain standard, and that's just fine. We do that all over, and it's what it is because we have limited funds.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so sensing no other discussion from the board, I'd like to go ahead and turn back to Jose. Jose, you said you had a motion already.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we instruct or direct Able City to come back with a proposal for walkability for sidewalk improvements on one side of the block, whichever they determine is the most fitting or most convenient from a cost standpoint and design standpoint, on the 1300 block of Zaragoza and the Aldo to Tangelo walkway. At least one side of the walkway be walkable on those two blocks, which is block 300 and 400 of San Agustin. And then the second part of the motion is to come back with a lighting, tree, wayfinding plan for the L and the H, essentially H being Zaragoza and Iturbide. The second one's more of a planning item, but the first one is directed to start crafting an improvement plan, and then we take action on the allocation of that item, I guess, at the next meeting. But it's basically identifying specifically those three blocks, 1300 Zaragoza and the two on Aldo de Tangelo walkway.
To be clear, Jose, the 1300 Zaragoza is the street, is a part of Zaragoza immediately after Convent going towards the outlets?
In between Convent and Salinas.
Okay, in between Convent and Salinas, just to give you all the point of reference in case you don't have blocks numbers memorized.
I have a question. Are you including the entrance to the mall? Because that's a little bit beyond that. Jose, you're not.
I'm not including it.
No. So so let's break this up and do the first part, Jose. What we have on the table is the motion for instructing Able City to prepare a proposal for to address the walkability sidewalks, whether it be one side or the other, to be determined by Able City for the one block between Salinas, Convent on Zaragoza, 1300 block of Zaragoza, and the 300 and 400 block of San Agustin, known as the Tangelo walkway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Wait, clarify, Henry. Oh, I guess we're still going to have a discussion after the second, right?
Yeah, after we have the second, is there a second?
I'll second it. Kirby.
It's been seconded. Okay, now let's go ahead and open the floor to discussion.
So it's Jose for sidewalk improvements, for lighting, and for landscaping, right? Cost estimates for those three things?
No.
Let me clarify. The second part of the motion was to bring back a plan for trees, that the trees that are listed here are $4,000 each on the last budget. I think that's, yeah, they're very mature trees, but we could probably go halfway and not get such a mature tree that could still be, could still have character and longevity. Anyway, so the second part.
It includes installation.
Yeah, Okay.
That's a second, and I'd like to break it up, Jose. That's a second part. I wanted to address the walkability
Okay.
and your motion. So will you clarify your motion one more time, Jose?
The first part is bring back a cost estimate proposal for those 3 blocks on one side of the street, sidewalk improvements. The second part is planning to bring back a tree
I'm sorry,
designation
Jose.
plan.
I'm sorry, Jose. The motion on the table is that first part. Can we break it up so that we do this in parts? Is that okay? We have a
Is
Okay.
Kirby's fine with it?
Yeah. So the motion, it would be the walkability part on one side to be determined by Able City for those 3 blocks that Jose has said. So we have a motion and we have a second by Kirby, and we've had a couple of questions. Are there any other questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Carol? Yes.
I'm not understand, the 1300 block of Zaragoza, I believe, is the part of the sidewalk that the city has already worked on. Is that correct?
I
Not
don't,
sure that, yeah.
Mm-mm. It's Convent to Salinas.
It's the block right after the mall on Zaragoza.
So it's
Convent.
Salinas to Convent.
Yes.
yes. Not the right as you exit the pedestrians exit, not that street.
Okay, and you're sure that's the 1300 block?
Well, that's why we are describing it. If it's
Okay.
not the 13 block, we're saying between Convent and Salinas on Zaragoza.
Yeah, it may be the,
That's a 1200.
well, it's the 1200s. Maybe you would call that the 1300 block. So it's good, Henry, to be specific. It is between Salinas and Convent. Forget about the 1300 or 1200s. It's the block of Zaragoza between Salinas and Convent.
Okay.
And also, I had a question to Arturo. Arturo, if you are did you say that you'd have to recuse yourself on anything that had to do with Iturbide because of what reason?
But we're not,
Um,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'd like to answer the question, Mr. Chairman, just so it'd be clear and
Yes, I know, but this is not part of this is not a discussion on the
Oh,
motion at
okay.
hand.
No
We can
problem.
be deviating. Let's wait till we get to something on Iturbide. We're
Well,
not discussing Iturbide Street yet.
My question is because, well, it's actually a very relevant question. If Arturo
Okay.
can answer, please.
Okay, go ahead, Arturo.
I'd be recusing myself on anything on Iturbide, specifically on the 800 block or anything that might affect directly if we decide on anything on Iturbide, because I'm an owner of several properties on Iturbide Street on the 800 block.
Okay, so I'm an owner of property on the 1200 block of Zaragoza, so that's why I'm
Well,
asking.
Carol, I think Arturo is just avoiding any appearance, but the reality is you don't have to recuse yourself unless you're directly financially benefited. So if we were voting on an improvement for his building, like a public partnership for his building, then he would definitely have to recuse himself. To not vote just because these improvements are near him, he doesn't have to do that. He's choosing to do that, and he can. So can you, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
You're not acting in any impropriety.
And I would underline something Kirby suggested. Remember, several board members are here specifically because of our knowledge and our work with the downtown area. So for them make us not viable to vote on the board we've been appointed to because of the interest and the work we've done in the downtown area. So sorry, Carol, I misunderstood your question. Thank you for clarifying. Arturo, thank you for clarifying. And Kirby, thank you for that. Okay, so any other comments?
Henry, I have the map, the Google aerial. If we want to talk about that block for a second and show it to Carol, I can put that back on the screen.
I think we're all clear which block it is.
I'm familiar with I mean, I know where the 1200 block is.
Okay.
In the 1300,
Okay.
block, but the 1300, yeah.
Okay, so but we understand we're talking about Zaragoza between Convent and Salinas, right? Okay.
Can I make one
Course,
question?
please.
So, yeah, Jose, do you intend to make 3 separate motions for one for sidewalk, one for trees, one for lighting? Is that what we're doing here?
No, Kirby, the second part of the motion is more to bring back a plan for us. Because string lighting is so inexpensive, it could probably cover a broad area of it if we actually have a way to get a meter on a post, and work with AP on it. I don't know how practical that is, but string lighting, I think we could do a lot with a small budget. The trees, it's more about placement that I'm interested in. So I would like to see and even the wayfinding, I would like to see that on a site plan, so that at this point is not a directive to move on a cost estimate, but more to come back with a plan that shows locations.
So we have a, is there any other discussion? So we have a motion and we have a second for Jose's specific motion on the walkability of 3 blocks in particular that we've already delineated. There's been discussion on the.
We're asking for a cost estimate for those 3 blocks.
Exactly. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, and I'm sorry, can I ask for you to call the question, someone to call the question, please?
Call for the question.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Jose, sorry, I'm breaking this up into parts, but I think it's important. Second part.
Second part, I move that we ask Able City or direct Able City to come back at the next meeting with a proposal or a plan for trees, hanging string lights, and wayfinding in the full H. Means that L and then extending to Zaragoza, extending to Iturbide, to Santa Ursula on Iturbide, and to Santa Ursula on Zaragoza. Then the board can decide on cost whether we do that whole section or we bring that back to certain blocks. But at least,
can you share your screen so there's no discrepancy this time on what we're talking about?
Let me share mine with the map.
I'll say with,
Yeah, thanks.
he's got a map.
so the L would you all see that?
We can
Why
see
don't
your
you
cursor,
put
yeah.
like,
We can see your cursor.
Okay, so the L would be, this is Zaragoza Street.
From Salinas?
From Salinas here, here's Convent, here's Flores, here's San Agustin. We would do that. The H would follow all the way to Santa Ursula, right?
Okay.
The L would come this way to the Center for the Arts. I think that's, what is that street? Is that, I don't know the street. And then this is Iturbide. Iturbide would go from Flores, from Flores to Santa Ursula.
Okay.
okay, question. So you went on San Agustin to Lincoln, not to Hidalgo, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So yeah, just to clarify, I needed to get some clarification there also, Jose. So your proposal, let's start with Zaragoza. Go Zaragoza from Salinas to Santa Ursula, is that correct?
Correct.
And then Iturbide, you said from Flores to Santa Ursula? Or
Yes.
from San Agustin to Santa Ursula?
From Flores.
Flores to Santa Ursula.
And the trees, and Henry, the reason I stopped there is because there's already trees on that next block of Iturbide. Now, if we
Got it.
wanted to do lighting, we could do lighting, but there's already lamps, street lamps there. We're
Right.
completely dark on the, I believe, where On the Rocks is. I think
I
that's
get
block
that.
10. We're dark there, we're dark on 9, we're dark on 8. So that's
And-
why I cut it there.
And I understand, and by the way, we understand that if there happens to be lighting or if there's something or trees already there, then it stands to reason that Able City won't duplicate it. But, and then, so that's that Iturbide. And then the other street you covered was San Agustin from Zaragoza through Lincoln.
That's correct. I make
Okay.
I make the same assumption. There's lighting at the Center for the Arts. There's some trees there, so I stopped there.
Okay. Able City, you have that. I take it. So then the motion is that Able City come back with a proposal, a plan proposal for trees, lighting, string lighting, and wayfinding in the streets that have been indicated. Is there a second to the motion?
Second that.
Okay, now we're open for discussion. Kirby has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
May I make, Jose, would you be willing to amend that to, if we're asking for a plan, why not ask for a cost estimate at the same time? So we don't have to go back again and ask for that.
I think that's fine, and I would like one other clarification on the wayfinding.
Can we ask for that discreetly so that we know if we have to remove certain component? In other words, break that cost down so we can see, here's the cost for trees, here's the cost for lighting, here's the cost for wayfinding, because I know you're enthusiastic. I hope that's going to cost a lot more, I think, than you think it is for those three things. In fact, I think what the area you just described would probably take all of our money and then some to do that.
Okay. Well, and we'll just have to cut back per block. I mean, that's the neat thing about that if we have a number. I would like to, for wayfinding, make a change. I'd like for the wayfinding to be for an expanded area, to go all the way to the metro, to bring back an expanded wayfinding plan.
Say this one more time.
The one from the original meeting.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
we pretty much have a plan for that, and we'll figure it out from there.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Sensing no other discussion, I'd like to just clarify that Jose's motion, in addition to including the proposed plan, has been amended to add cost to it, and breaking out the cost in a way that would enable us to take away something should we need to go back and reduce costs, saying, and I'm using this as an example, I'm not using this as something that would be done, but let us just say it went over budget, over what we have, and we said, okay, not take away the leg of Zaragoza that goes from San Agustin to Santa Ursula, and we can take that away. And you wouldn't have to go back to the drawing board, Able City, to do that. You'd be able to say, yeah, okay, we can take that away and it's going to be this. Okay.
We understand.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, so will someone please call for the question?
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we already have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
I'll be abstaining.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, so the motion passes with one abstention from Mr. Arturo Garcia. Otherwise, all the other votes were in the affirmative. I need to, any other motions now from any other board members? I think we've used money and then some, but I think these instructions are very specific. Mr. Garcia.
I have one motion. I'd still like the mural.
So I was
20 to 25,000, whatever it is, just one mural.
I was going to say, Mr. Garcia, I was not going to leave that subject. In fact, I could hold up my notes here. So what I was going to say, if there were no other motions, I was going to instruct us to go back and look at the minutes to make sure, to see where we passed that item, just so that we don't leave that out, because you've brought it up a couple of times and I don't think we're opposed to it.
And does this mean no facade improvement grants either? Is that the intention of everybody?
At this point, I think this is what we're at. At this point, I think when we talk about money for grants to help with EDA grant for Salinas or facade improvement, that has to come after we've seen what this is going to cost. But let's start here.
Okay.
That's the feeling I get, board members. Are you in agreement? Okay. Those other points are good points, Able City. I totally get it. I just think we need to start somewhere, and then either we're going to whittle back or we'll have an area to grow a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. As you know, I like to run these meetings 1 hour at a time because I know that your time is valuable. We've gone over the hour, but I think we've had a very productive meeting. We do have one other item on the agenda, so if you'll indulge me a couple of more minutes, we'll get to it. Item 6 is a staff report with possible action related to the current invoice expenses to date from the consultant Able City, review of invoice submitted, and requesting monthly invoice reporting. So those of us that received the message for this meeting received the attached invoice. Unless there are any comments or you want to review it a little bit more, I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the invoice as submitted.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Part of the agenda item also, Able City, is that you continue to submit these on I believe it's at a monthly basis. Is that how I read it correctly? Hold on a second. Yes, and request that you submit your invoices on a monthly basis.
Mr. Chairman, if I could talk a little bit about that item. I know I was bringing it up in discussion with Tina, and just so there can be the purview. It facilitates and assists staff in being able to review the invoices submitted to verify the work done. That's one. And then 2, it gives us as a board a clear picture of how much money we're spending and how the clock is ticking, so that keeps us on track to making sure that we don't keep repeating, like we've already been kind of gutting you here, there, and we've already kind of like 2-3 months here from our side of it. So I just want to make sure that us as board members are keenly aware how much the clock is ticking and it's clicking with dollars. So I want to make sure that it reminds us by seeing that monthly bill. Okay.
Thank you. I think that's an important reminder. Thank you, Arturo. Any other comments? Okay.
You've done a fantastic job getting us down into some movement, some action. We really appreciate you doing a great job.
Yeah, I know, and thank you for saying that. I know that the sense sometimes is that this is dragging and going a little long, but trust me, considering where we were at the very beginning, and 2 of us that are still on the board from the very beginning are Patty Goldberg and myself. This has come a long way, and so I'm really appreciative of your help in getting us here. I know we haven't addressed everything that needs to be addressed. I have notes. Keep on bringing them up, because Carol, your points are well taken on connecting to the college. I agree with you. We need to look at that. I know Patty's ideas on Salinas Street and the EDA grant are important there. I don't want to forget those either. And I know the facade program is something else. We're going to get to them, but we just can't get them all at the same time, but we will.
Yes, this is a 30-year TERS, so we've got lots of years ahead.
Okay, well, sensing no more discussion, I'd like to also now entertain a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion, Kirby.
Is there a second? It's been seconded by Mr. Garcia. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Very good.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Able City.